tax freight train is bearing down on your retirement. To protect yourself, you'll have to harness the power of zero.
Hello and welcome to the Power of Zero show. This is your host, best-selling author, David McKnight, author of The Power of Zero, Look Before You LIRP, The Volatility Shield, Tax-Free Income for Life, and just around the corner, I just sent the manuscripts off to my editor, Infinity Code. The Infinity Code will be coming soon to Amazon and wherever you buy fine books. I'm excited for you guys to read a full-length 75,000-word novel that treats very, very important financial concepts and themes that will keep you on the edge of your seat throughout the entirety of the read. If you are looking for someone to help you navigate all of the different issues we'll talk about today and in prior podcasts, why not head over to davidmcknight.com. We'll hook you up with a member of our elite POZ advisor group, among the very best tax-free financial planning specialists in the nation, trained, vetted, qualified personally by me. If you are a financial advisor looking to step up your game, head over to powerzero.com, opt into our free 3-part video series. Today, we are going to talk about something very, very important, and that is why it's absolutely critical that your LIRP have a guaranteed zero-cost loan, also known as a guaranteed wash loan, okay? Now, we're going to be treating some of the themes in my second book, Look Before You LIRP, but really, LIRPs, if they're going to figure into your comprehensive tax-free retirement plan, there's some things that your LIRP absolutely has to have. I make the case in Look Before You LIRP that starting an LIRP is a bit like getting married. Most of you within the sound of my voice, before you got married, you had a laundry list of things you were looking for in a spouse. You might, want to have the same values, the same interests, be going more or less in the same direction. So you had a laundry list, and if you don't admit to having a laundry list, then you're probably not being completely forthright. Most people have laundry lists when it comes to a spouse. You know what you're looking for. I make the case and Look Before You LIRP that you should have a laundry list of things that you are looking for before embarking on a lifelong adventure with your LIRP. Remember, LIRPs only really work if you have them until death do you part, okay? And if that's the case, you shouldn't sign up for an LIRP or enter into this contract in a willy-nilly way, not understanding the fine print of your contract, not understanding what all the various nuances of the contract are. There are things within these LIRP contracts that can really blow up on you 10 years, 15 years, 20 years into the contract that unless you know about ahead of time will really blindside you and make you wish that you had never entered into the contract to begin with. One of those things that I talk about in Look Before You LIRP is the importance of having not just a zero-cost loan, but a guaranteed zero-cost loan. So let's begin with the concept that all LIRPs are tax-free. Why are all LIRPs tax-free? All LIRPs are tax-free because you are not taking a distribution per se from the LIRP. You may, in some instances, take a distribution. So, for example, whatever you contributed to your LIRP is using after-tax dollars. Therefore, you have the right to withdraw those, your principal or your contributions, tax-free because you already paid taxes on them when you, sort of like a Roth IRA. You already paid taxes on them when you contributed those dollars, so you can then take those dollars out tax-free. But if you're 30 years into the arrangement, most of the cash value inside your policy will be growth on what you contributed, not just what you contributed. So the question is, how do you get the growth on what you contributed out of your LIRP without paying taxes? Well, if you take a distribution, you will pay taxes almost as if it were an annuity or an IRA. Because you haven't paid taxes on it, you take a distribution out and you will pay taxes on those distributions. So to get around that, the IRS allows you to take a loan. And the way life insurance companies work these loans is they, instead of taking a loan from your cash value itself, you're actually taking a loan from the life insurance company. So what you do is let's say you need $10,000 from your LIRP. You want to take it out in a tax-free way. Call up your life insurance company and say, hey, look, I need $10,000 from my policy. I want to take a loan. So they say, okay. They cut you a loan out of their own coffers, and they send you that $10,000 in the mail. And that's what you get. You get 4 or 5 days later, you get it, and you can then spend it. Now, you have opened up a loan with that life insurance company. So they're going to charge you, in order for it to be an arm's length transaction, they're going to charge you a rate of interest. Let's call it 3%. Well, in this very same breath, they are going to take that same $10,000 out of your cash value growth account, and they're going to put it in what I call a loan collateral account. And insurance companies will credit you an amount to that loan collateral account. So for example, if on the right-hand side of the ledger, they're charging you 3% for that loan, if you get the right insurance company, they're going to credit back to your loan collateral account that same 3%. Okay. So you were charged 3% from the life insurance company because it has to be an arm's length transaction, and the loan collateral account, they credited you back 3%. So at the end of the day, if that number that they charge you and the number that they credit you is always the same, and that's what we call wash loan, zero cost loan, what have you. So all you know is that you asked for $10,000, you got $10,000, your cash value went down by $10,000, and you got to spend that money tax-free. Sort of felt like a tax-free distribution from a Roth IRA. A lot more moving parts, but it felt from a tax perspective like a tax-free distribution from your Roth IRA. Okay. Now, everything seems like it's going great, so long as your insurance company guarantees that the number that they're crediting you and the number that they're charging you will never change. Okay. In that case, you have a guaranteed 0% loan, a guaranteed wash loan, and you are guaranteed to take distributions always tax-free and cost-free. Remember, there's a difference between just tax-free but not cost-free. To be in the optimal scenario, you have to have tax-free and cost-free. So not all loan provisions are created equal. So let me give you an example. So in my book, Look Before You LIRP, on page 38, and by the way, if you haven't read Look Before You LIRP and you're contemplating getting an LIRP, I would absolutely recommend that you read that book. I've had people read all my books. They say, Dave, this is my favorite one. It really explores exactly what I should be looking for in an LIRP. Anyway, so I've got this chart on page 38, and it's what we call a net cost to borrow analysis. And the example I have is a 65-year-old who has $1 million of cash value, and he wants to take an annual loan of $75,000. The money's growing at 7.5% over time. So I got 3 columns. I show a 2% spread loan, I show a 1% spread loan, and I show a 0% spread loan. So what you'll find is that if you have a 2% spread loan, they're charging you 8% on the one hand, and maybe they're crediting you back 6%. So the net cost to you is 2%. So what happens is at the end of the first year, if you don't pay that 2% difference back to the insurance company, they're going to subtract it right out of your cash value. So you say, no big deal. 2% is better than, say, 35% tax. So because the difference between those two numbers is so huge, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Well, this is where the snowball effect can really catch up with you, because the second year, if you take another $75,000 loan, they're going to charge you $2,000 for that. And if you haven't paid back the loan from the first year, they're going to charge you 2% for the first year and 2% for the second year. And you start to go along, and these loan charges start to grow and compound and snowball to the point where you literally run out of money after the 19th year. So you can basically take 19 years worth of $75,000 loans. That's $1,425,000 of tax-free distributions. You might be thinking, that's great. Sure beats the alternative. Well, let's go over to the next column where we show you the implications of a 1% spread loan. The 1% spread loan's not that much better. Instead of running out of money after the 19th year, you run out of money after the 23rd year. You're able to take distributions of $1,725,000. So that's $300,000 more than the 2% spread loan. So that 1% difference in those spread loans over time costs you $300,000. Well, you're thinking, well, gosh, sure glad I don't have a 2% spread loan. I'm sure glad I have the 1% spread loan as opposed to the 2% spread loan. Well, take a look at what you get if you actually have a 0% spread loan. If you have a 0% spread loan, which means what they're charging you on the one hand and what they're crediting back to you on the other hand is the same, you are able to take that $75,000 loan out over the course of a full 30-year time period. You take out $2.25 million. Let's go back to what you were able to take out with the 2% spread loan. You were only able to take out $1.425 million. That's a difference between the 2% and the 0% of $825,000. So your loan provision cost you $825,000. 1% spread loan, you can only take out 1.725 versus the 2.25 with the guaranteed 0% spread loan. That's a difference of $525,000. So that little itsy bitsy 1% spread loan costs you $525,000. So that's bad news number one. Bad news number two is the IRS says that if you don't have at least $1 in your cash value when you die, then all of the taxes you got out of along the way with all those tax-free loans, you get to pay taxes on those all in the same year, all in the year when your cash value ran out of money. Okay, so that's a huge, huge issue. Get a 1099 for all of the taxable income that you got out of paying taxes on over the arc of that period where you were taking those loans. So there's a double whammy here. Not only are you missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans that you could have otherwise taken, but you potentially risk paying a tax bill that you weren't otherwise expecting. So the 0% spread loan is one of those stipulations, one of those qualities of an LIRP that you must absolutely insist upon. And you can talk all about how great the cash value of a life insurance policy is, but cash value is really inconsequential when compared to what I think is the most important provision in the entire life insurance contract, and that is your loan provision. Now, like I've said before, you can have a 0% spread loan, and the insurance company can reserve the right to change it to a 1% spread loan or a 2% spread loan or higher at their leisure at any point, at any time during the contract, in which case their fox is in your chicken coop. Okay. You give an insurance company 30 years to make up their mind what they're going to charge you for that loan. They're trying to, and particularly if it's a publicly traded company, they're trying to make sure that their stock goes up. And they say, hey, we're going to miss our quarterly projections. What's going to happen to our stock price if we don't hit our quarterly projections? It's going to take a nosedive. Well, maybe we could just take this opportunity to take that huge block of business where we had tentatively said that, under current practice as a 0% spread loan, let's change it to a 1, 2, 4, 5, or 8 so that we can raise the revenue necessary so that we can keep everybody happy on Wall Street and reach our quarterly projections. This is a very, very real scenario. Okay. So when you give insurance companies the wiggle room to manipulate those loan provisions over time, then really their fox is in your chicken coop. And insurance companies are out to make a profit. And particularly if they're publicly traded companies and they're going to miss their quarterly forecast, they have been known to take these types of measures, which is why it's absolutely paramount that if you're going to set out on a life journey, set out to be married to this LIRP over the course of a 50-year time period, you must absolutely insist on having a guaranteed 0% spread loan. It's got to be guaranteed to be tax-free and cost-free. They're all tax-free because they're loans at the end of the day, but they've got to be tax-free and cost-free. So if you have an insurance policy that has a net cost to borrow that's greater than zero, or a zero cost loan where they reserve the right to change it to 1, 2, 5, or 8 at their leisure, I would say head over to davemcknight.com. We'll take a look at it and we'll perhaps introduce you to some companies that have guaranteed 0% loans. And you can do what's called a 1035 exchange, where you take the cash value out of those old policies that have those very undesirable loan provisions, and you can simply shift that money on a tax-free basis into a new LIRP that has a guaranteed 0% spread loan. Now, let me just give you an idea of how sneaky some of these insurance companies can be. I'm going to read to you from page 57 of my book, Look Before You LIRP. There's a little subsection in there called A Tale of Two Loan Provisions. And this is how I describe it. I say, a good loan provision charges no net interest to the client, but is also worded in a clear and unambiguous way. A bad loan provision, on the other hand, not only has a net cost, but can be shrouded in legalese, nebulous terms, and convenient escape clauses. Consider the following zero-cost loan provision. This is actually from one of the companies that we really recommend. says, quote, after the 5th policy year, we guarantee that we will offer zero cost loans. The annual interest rate charged on zero cost loans is guaranteed to be 3.5%, which is the same rate we guaranteed to credit on zero cost loans. So notice how the amount being credited is exactly the same as the amount being charged starting on the first day of the 6th year. What's more, the word guarantee is used on 3 separate occasions. So this is a classic example of an ironclad guaranteed 0% loan provision. Folks, you want this type of loan provision. If you're planning on keeping this until death do you part, which you should be, you should not enter into these contracts if you're not planning on keeping them until death do you part, right? So contrast what I just read with you with the following example of a non-zero cost loan. Quote, the annual interest rate on a policy loan will be 8% for the first 10 policy years, 7% for policy years 11 through 20, and 6.5% for policy years 21 and later. We guarantee we will credit the loan account at 6%. The maximum guaranteed net cost of loans is 2% annually and may be less. Wait, what? Be honest. How many times did you go back? And if this is, of course, if you read my book, how many times did you go back and reread that to see if you could figure out exactly what was going on? Let's break it down and see if we can decipher the implications for the policyholder. At first glance, it appears that the loan charge over the first 20 years will drop from 8% to 7%, and then ultimately to 6.5%. It also appears that the company guarantees that they'll credit the loan collateral account, which is a loan account, at 6%. So on the surface, the worst case scenario appears to be a net 0.5% loan cost after the 20th year, which is a 6.5% loan charge minus a 6% loan credit. However, note the very last sentence. Quote, the maximum guaranteed net cost of loans is 2% annually and may be less. In other words, notwithstanding everything they told you in the first 2 sentences, the worst case loan provision could still be as high as 2%. They intend to reduce the loan charge from 8% to 6.5% over the first 20 years, but they're not willing to guarantee it. It may result in a 0.5% loan provision, but then again, it may not. The policyholder has no assurances. Are you beginning to see how the devil is in the details when it comes to these loan provisions? Okay, so that's an excerpt from my book, Look Before You LIRP, which I wrote back in 2016 and revised, I believe, in 2020. Okay, so here's the issue here is I'm not convinced that most of the financial services industry understands the implications of these loans. I have sat across the table from people who've been in the life insurance industry, financial insurance industry for the last 30 years. They may even have been really top producers in the industry. And I'll say, tell me about the loan provision in your favorite policy. And they'll just stare sort of blankly back at me. And they don't really, this is the single most provision and most important provision in life insurance contract. It should be the one that advisors are most intimately acquainted with. But my experience has been that financial advisors generally aren't familiar with the details of the loan provisions and the policies that they're selling, not in the least bit, which is scary because they may unwittingly be sending their clients and prospects down a road that causes them to pay huge amounts of net costs of borrowing over time, and that could potentially put them in a position where their policies go bankrupt 11 to 18 years faster than they ever thought possible. Okay. So it's absolutely imperative that at the end of the day, before you go down the road with a financial advisor talking about an LIRP, you must insist up front that they tell you all of the details of the loan provision of that contract. And if they hem and haw and they say, yeah, I'll have to look that up and get back to you, what that tells you, or what that should tell you, is that they aren't familiar with the implications, the deleterious implications of a non-zero cost loan provision, in which case you should probably turn and run the other way. Now, if conversely, the financial advisor says, oh yeah, the net cost to borrow is guaranteed at 0 and it's guaranteed in the contract. And there's 3 companies out there or 4 companies out there that do it. But of those 4 companies, 2 of them have all of the other types of qualities that we're looking for in an LIRP. If they get extra brownie points if they say, by the way, have you ever read Look Before You LIRP? David McKnight has an excellent list of laundry list qualities that you should have in an LIRP. And by the way, I know of 2 companies that have all of those. So if they are able to have that type of conversation with you, number one, they're probably a Power Zero advisor. They're probably a member of our elite POZ advisor group, or they're just very well read. They're very well researched and they understand the implications of all these things. So really, folks, be familiar with your loan provisions. They will come back to bite you. That loan interest will accumulate. It will grow and compound over time, and it will force you to go bankrupt years in advance of when you ever thought possible. And that bankruptcy of your policy will be accompanied by a little love letter from the IRS saying, hey, look, all that money, all that taxes you missed out on over all those years because you were taking those tax-free loans. Well, guess what? Chicken's coming home to roost. And now you get to pay taxes on all of that money all in the same year. And folks, I have seen people get these 1099s from the IRS all in one year and have to pay $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 in tax because of that. And it's not a happy moment, trust me, to get those 1099s. So just be very, very cognizant of all of the different things that can go wrong with the LIRP. And by the way, that's only one of 7 or 8 different qualities I discuss in Look Before You LIRP, that you should have a complete laundry list of qualities that you're looking for, and your LIRP should check all of the boxes. And if you feel like you're in a position where you have an LIRP that doesn't check all of those boxes, head over to davidmcknight.com. We're happy to take a look at your policy. We can even run you a comparison of what your loan provision will do for you versus what a guaranteed 0% loan provision will do for you. So we're happy to do that. That service is free of charge, but absolutely head over to davidmcknight.com. If you are a financial advisor who wants to learn how to identify these types of things in the policies of your clients and prospects, please head over to powerzero.com. We're happy to set up a phone call with you and talk about how you can internalize all of these things into your financial planning practice. If you're looking for any of my books in bulk, head over to davidmcknightbooks.com. You can get them. You can mix and match titles and get bulk discounts. If you are looking to follow me on Twitter, you can do so. It's at McKnight & Co., at McKnight & Co., or on Instagram, it's David C. McKnight, David C. McKnight. Don't forget about our movie, our documentary, The Power of Zero, The Tax Train is Coming. That can be watched just about anywhere that you stream movies. And as always, we love to get reviews on Amazon. It really helps people look at the reviews. Hey, how many reviews does this book have? What's the cumulative rating? Is it 4.6, 4.7 stars? Just give a fair and honest review. All of those reviews help elevate this message to 78 million baby boomers who are sitting on the train tracks with a massive freight train bearing down on them. Once again, stay tuned for my book. I'll have it back from my editor in about a week and a half. I'm excited to get that to you. It's a great story. It's a Dan Brown type novel. It's a thriller. It's a suspense type novel that's about a shadowy cabal of Harvard graduates from 1985 who set in motion a plan to completely remake the United States of America. And there's only one guy who can stop them. And he's a sophomore at Harvard University who inadvertently finds out about this organization and has to try to thwart their efforts. So great story, a lot of action. We'll keep you on the edge of your seat. So anyway, that's it for today's show. I appreciate you tuning in as always, and we will look forward to chatting with you same time next week.